Hello, can you see me okay?
Hello.
Oh no, I have to do.
Not yet,
Here,
but
how's this? Here
oh,
I am. Yeah, I know how to do this. Hi.
hi, David. Oh my goodness, thank you so
Hi.
much for agreeing to do this.
Where are you from? Where are you calling from?
I'm in Chicago.
Oh, it looks like you could be in Taiwan is where you're from, right?
Oh, because of all the greenery.
I was
Yeah.
thinking, oh man, you're in Taiwan.
Oh
I'm
no,
just teasing.
I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, south suburbs.
Same thing. I'm
What?
just teasing again. No, so cool.
Oh, I'm completely starstruck right now because I'm this is incredible to meet you, and
No,
I've been a fan of yours and of your quartets for as long as I can
thanks,
remember.
Jasmine.
So,
Oh, thanks so much. You guys are really good. I mean, I was checking you all out. You're a
oh
good string
no,
quartet. You guys the real thing.
oh
So
no.
I'm just thrilled you guys are like taking something like this Turtle Island thing on I'm just I tell me about it. I mean, so it sounds all very intriguing. Yeah, no, but of course you guys are award-winning,
Oh, well, so
killing
okay,
string
so
quartet.
I am taking jazz fiddle lessons with Daryl on artist works.
Ah, fantastic.
So yeah, so he first of all, I hope it's okay that I we didn't actually purchase this arrangement. I we're still happy to purchase it from you. I feel
What
like I
what is it?
it's
Which one
the
is it?
night in Tunisia.
Ah, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
No, no, don't look. Listen, you don't even worry about such a thing. In fact, I don't even, to be honest, I'm so up into my own original music at this point in my life. So I basically just give my arrangements to people and just say, could you please buy one of my original pieces? That's kind of the way I work it all. So you're off the hook. Um, and just don't worry about that at all. Happy that you're having fun. That's a great chart to play. A
Thank
lot of
you.
great opportunities to get in big trouble. That's what I like to talk
That's
about.
exactly right. So anyway, so I'm just I think it's sort of the how I came to be a fan of Turtle Island was through seeing you guys' 1990 performance of that, and it's just I was just talking to Daryl the other day, and it's just the most amazing performance, and so maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But that's how sort of we came to be interested in
Oh,
Tunisia, and so Daryl sent me, the arrangement. So we're playing it on October 1st.
fantastic. So when you're too young to have seen it live, so you must have seen a video of it, right? You're talking
Oh,
about
I
a
am. Don't assume.
yeah, no, I'm serious. So you didn't see us perform live in 1990.
No,
There's
I saw.
no
It was
the video.
video. Yes, video.
Yeah, that one that's is it that one that was at the that place with all the instruments on it's it's Louisville something or other.
Yes, you
Yeah,
guys are
yeah,
wearing
yeah.
these colored shirts.
Yeah, it was 80s. That was like the hip thing. We had like the silk shirts and everything. We're also young. Oh my God, I see that. Like that was so much fun. Yeah, it
So
was
yeah, so I
ridiculously
mean,
fun.
can you? So that was you guys had been or quartet for several years already by then, or I mean, were you formed
No, we
in?
started in '85, so not that. That's pretty much still right out the gate. I mean, we had already gone through uh, two. That was our third violist already. You know how
Oh,
string
really?
quartets can be, yeah. So it can be a challenge to keep the membership stable, and that's always the hardest part, especially for improvising musicians, because
Yeah.
they're
So
very much wanting to do different things. So, you know.
So you okay? So tell me how it all came about. So did you and Daryl start it together, or was it
I
you
mean,
and
it's just
Daryl?
different ways. I mean, like you wouldn't want to leave out Mark Summer for sure.
But Daryl met Mark after. Like I know Mark was the original cellist, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you didn't. I thought you and
Daryl and I are buddies forever. So it really, Daryl and I were really close friends. And so what happens? The story with this is that we were already trying all sorts of multi fiddle things. We did a record called Jazz Violin Celebration together with Matt Glazer. I don't even know who he is, and he's a great violinist. And so we did this triple violin thing. And so we were all into this idea of combining, you know, strings, just violins playing together. We even would do this four violin thing with just with Mike Marshall on violin. We used to play with Barbara Higbee and Daryl and me and Mike Marshall. So what happened for me and my story with this is that I started realizing, wait a minute, there you could have a real string quartet play this, and so I started writing original music. So for me personally, Turtle Island was always my baby to try to say I could write string quartet music like that was coming from the tradition of Beethoven, and not just improvising. That the writing would be really a part of it. So what happened was I had all this music I'd written, and then Mark Summers showed up to jam with us on a concert we played backing that record, and Matt was there too. So it was Matt, me, and Daryl and Mark, and I just realized, oh crap, I could actually have I could hear my music, and so really got together to play this music I'd written, and I also had these jazz arrangements. And Daryl and I had been best friends; he was totally into this, and so we started playing together. Man, this is really working. And then what happened was right away the jazz arrangements showed something that we didn't even realize, which is that a string quartet playing a jazz tune like A Night in Tunisia or Stolen Moments was much more striking than what I was all about, which is my original music. So I was looking more to write stylistically integrated music for the string quartet, following the tradition of Beethoven to Stravinsky to blah blah blah. The Elliott Carter, if you want to go there. So what ended up happening was more the quartet became known more for right away that we could swing. You could have a string quartet where everybody could really play authentically, improvise, and just like you said, when you see that, it's striking, right? And so that's where from my own role in it, and why I'm still here today, where Daryl got off the boat real long time ago, because it's hard to do this for the rest of your life. For me, it's always been this singular story that my life's about, which is to find a way to represent original compositional music in this idea with all four players equally grounded in jazz improvisation and classical technique, which then gives rise to what you see, like in a performance of Night in Tunisia. And so that's kind of how it all happened. As soon as that, it kind of blew up because it was like going through a door nobody thought to go through. And so we were just charging through there. And so as part of it, keep changing. I mean, to be still, man, 2022, still doing gigs, these days playing with Terrence Blanchard, with all these young players who are younger than my own kids, some of them, it's like, it's crazy. It's like, I mean, pinch me, I'm still here doing this. And
That's incredible. I just have to
yeah,
say kudos to
yeah,
you for keeping it going for so long.
yeah.
That's really really incredible. I know what that's like because
Oh my God,
I'm
it's
also
so, it's
yeah.
just felt so, it's just like a roller coaster. Like when the pandemic hit, I thought, oh, that's it. How is anything like this ever going to last? And just magically, the right thing showed up that allows this, and honestly, I feel like it's just almost in some ways coming into another level on its own beyond this. See, because you're playing like Tunisia. These are these great. Which one of Daryl's arrangements are you guys playing? Did you?
Um, he's sort of the Night in Tunisia part
Oh,
of
he's just okay. You're not doing a different. So
it.
that's okay. That's just curious because we kind of came up doing more arrangements as we're known for, but original music on the back end. Like so, it's switching that at this point and trying to make more about what my dream was always about, which is to say this is an original music group that can convey the finest uh, contemporary music written. I want to be a major part of that. Obviously, I'm a composer first and foremost. Um, as because what happens is, and eventually, a string quartet playing a jazz tune will not be something you can keep as a fresh new idea forever. You know, it's got to keep growing and evolving, and that's where original music comes a lot. And also to integrate with other great jazz musicians, like Terrence Blanchard. You can't get any better than that. Playing shows with Terrence, and we got to meet Wayne Shorter, and hang out
You
with
worked
him.
with
And
Norpelli, right? You worked with Stefan.
oh my goodness, so that's a good question. So that's going back to early days, and because so yeah, that was his music. He's incredible. He's one of the patron saints of jazz violin for a good reason, and I've always really loved his playing. Um, and I was luckily able to hang out. Daryl was in David Balakrishnan Quintet, and so he he was actually more touring with Stefan at times, and whereas me, I was just once in a while I would be lucky enough to hang out and be on stage with him. I was still in my puppy stage at that point, but I loved being around him. He was like amazing. So
So where did you get your jazz training,
yeah,
if there was such a thing? I mean, where did you learn all your
yeah,
stuff?
yeah. That's a good question. So what happened for me was just that when I was a teenager, like 14 or so, I was playing violin like every kid in school, but I wasn't that into it. Like like in those. This is 1969 or something, like a long time ago. And what was happening right then was rock and roll in the 60s, in the hippie era and all that, and that was like huge culturally, and I was very much aware of that. And so I was learning how to play guitar to try to be in a rock band. And then I realized, wait a minute, there's all these people playing guitar. And I could say, you could play rock on the violin. And I'd seen there were some examples, like there's a guy named Sugarcane Harris, and then one of my main heroes is still playing, named Jerry Goodman, and he was in a group called The Flock. Later on, he joined a group called the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which is huge for me because that was with John McLaughlin. And then this was what was happening with jazz was that it was already at that point moving away from the bebop thing of the late 50s, early 60s, and into fusion jazz, a la Chick Corea, John McLaughlin, Wayne Shorter, Weather Report, and these groups. And so when I heard McLaughlin, he was coming from jazz towards rock and roll. I had already learned figured out I can play rock and roll on the violin as a teenager, kind of playing blues licks, okay? And that's the thing. See, because when you read music and classical music, your music's coming to you from your eyes and your visuals. You know this story. And so it was really helpful at age 12 or 13, I was mucking around trying to figure out how to play blues licks on the violin by ear. And that introduced, and then I could have feel for it, And then I realized, oh my God, this guitar players are using the amp to sound like a violin. Like I can do all this with a bow that they're just having to use an amp to do. So then what happened was hearing John McLaughlin and Jerry Goodman and seeing that there was a language and a vocabulary I had no idea about. Like I was playing blues and rock and roll. That's jazz, Jasmine. That's still jazz. It's just the folk part of it, and you're not confronted with playing like anything vocabulary oriented. I would hear the virtuosity of jazz through that fusion thing, but it wasn't through went to UCLA and I was into composition. I studied 12-tone composition. I got a degree in that, and so that the classical composition side was happening while I was slowly making this journey from rock and roll into fusion jazz into straight ahead jazz. And I kind of landed in straight ahead jazz going backwards, as I would, what I'm saying, from rock and roll to fusion jazz to like all of a sudden, like I remember it was until I graduated college that I came across a chord. I started realizing there's this thing called bebop. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was the most strangest thing. And then I'm looking at this chord progression for the blues, and it just, I had studied so much theory as a composer, and then I saw the jazz that I had learned came from that kind of structure, and I just went, oh, I need to know this, and I just totally dove into studying bebop jazz language with various jazz teachers,
And was it? Sorry.
I just have a couple more things, which is at the same time I got into the bluegrass in late college years. I started hearing this style. I didn't know anything about it, and a friend of mine introduced me to the music of the David Balakrishnan Quintet. And I went to see Daryl in 1976, and it just blew me away to hear Daryl playing in that with Tony Rice and guitar. And Daryl's one of the progenitors of everything. He's somebody who really, what you hear today, in so many ways, he's just birthed a whole way of playing. I don't know if people realize how important he is in the whole scheme of things. My thing is Turtle Island. I kind of made my own little world in that. He's larger, to me, he's larger than that. He kind of goes way in terms of kind of being somebody who affected how you play the instrument. And so I realized right away and then the other thing is I heard a group called the Chakti right at the same time with a violinist named El Shankar. And I started realizing there's this whole Indian music thing I was aware of, but that was again with John McLaughlin. And so that kind of gave me this kind of style, bluegrass, jazz, classical, and Indian. Those are my four food groups, and those are where they all came from. And then what happened with Turtle Island is that it became the place I found a way to join those four food groups together in my own original music, and that's how I am what I am right now in that process of studying composition, having spent time learning as a classical violinist. Of course, I'm not going to be somebody you would hire for to be in a symphony orchestra. I got off that bus early on. I was too impatient with that. I wanted to do my own thing, and so I have this kind of stylistic base that covers a lot of ground, and then I write music from that standpoint, from trying to have my feet in these four worlds. And so the world is so full with so many choices. For me, I was lucky enough to be given a way to focus down on these four kind of mother styles, and there's enough there for me.
Did all four
Yeah.
of these styles come easily to you, or was, I mean, bebop?
No, it's a good question. That life just I'm in my late 60s, so I'm still amazed at how accidental life is. Like I can look back and say, "Oh, I struggled," but no, I mean, like I just took the next step. Like life just keeps showing you the next step, and then what. So when you get in your 30s, what happens generally is very common. I see it as a teacher a lot. Is that when you're in your 20s, you're just absorbing everything and taking everything in. In your 30s, you start realizing, who am I? Who am I? Who am I, Jasmine? Who am I, David? Who am I, Daryl? That's a period where you start how can I be me through all this instead of just covering all this ground or whatever your thing is, and that's a natural part of just trying to find your own voice, and so that's how Turtle Island happened for me in that way. I didn't set out to do it. It wasn't like I will now start. It just happened. It was the next logical step, and I think that's the way most stuff happened. I mean, probably everything happens that way. In the end, it's just this kind of magical way of life. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I would love to talk a little bit more in detail about Night in Tunisia itself.
yes,
Um,
sure,
there's so many things I want to talk about, like the cadenza,
yes,
because we're just completely in awe of you and Daryl's cadenza on that performance, and it's you guys. You guys, I don't know. It's just I can't. I don't even have words. It's so silly and
yeah,
nonsensical, and yet
yeah,
it's so the pacing is so tight, and you guys are basically improvising over the dominant. So it's not just any
good,
note. It sounds like it has a harmonic basis, and
that's good,
and it's just
yeah,
so organic, and everything sort of
yeah.
happens so sort of um, yeah, naturally, and with so much humor, and it's just delightful. So
Daryl was Daryl and I mean, we're brothers. So it's like talking to your brother. Like you've been living together for how many years, and you've been saying this. How do I explain? So because we share this brotherhood, the same love, the deep love of this music, and we hang out together, and it was so much fun those days. Oh my God. I look back on that, man. It was so like it was just to be sharing that whole exciting growth period together. And so we hanging out like that, you just develop this way of speaking to each other. Yes, we study, but it wasn't. This is more because we share some sort of connection. Now, you could put any two great players. It's not like, oh, you can't do this now. You could put Joe Blow, great jazz violinist, and Joe Blow, great, and they're going to be amazing. I think what you're talking about is something that I personally relate to as just being something that's special about Daryl and my relationship together at that period, and how much we hooked together. Um, and it was amazing and beautiful, and I'm so grateful for that. Um, there's ways that it happens, but I couldn't. How do you explain that? How do you talk about something that just kind of was a happening? It wasn't our first time playing together. We'd done that cadenza a million times, right? That's like, and it was different every night, and it would change like crazy.
I mean,
And
so
have you tried it yourself? Have you guys done that?
so we're gonna do it with violin and cello, that cadenza, and we're gonna,
Great.
yeah. But I wanted to ask you, like, so you're saying this, special connection with Daryl, and you must have performed this so many times even after Daryl left the group. And have you found that kind of the same kind of chemistry since then with others?
Yeah. So if I'm honest, I kind of find myself really mostly turning it over to the young players. So I I just feel like, man, I've had my time. I love doing it, and there's something about like so like the way when we've been playing it, we haven't played it in a while, but we were playing it again about around 2016 or so, because we were doing a lot of Miles Davis material right then, and oh no, Charlie Parker material. That's right, we were doing Charlie Parker at Bird's Eye View, and so it was a natural thing to include. And you know what? I was kind of done with the chart, but the young guys really wanted to play it,
Well, I
like
saw
Alex
this
and you know.
video on YouTube with Alex Hargreaves,
Yeah, yeah,
and he's isn't he doing the cadenza with?
yeah. So see,
Yeah,
so Alex. It was must have been Alex and Benny, or Alex. No, Alex and Malcolm, right? Was it violoncello? I can't
it
remember
was
what.
violoncello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was Malcolm. So yeah, they were those two. They would just have so much fun. It was just like it's hilarious. So, like um, I start to love being a spectator as much as a participant in that kind of thing.
And
Um,
so going back to the original
yeah,
formation, did you write the viola part? Because I noticed Daryl's playing octave violin, baritone violin
yeah,
on that performance.
yeah.
Was he playing octave violin a lot? Like, because I noticed.
Yes, that was always a two violin, octave violin, cello arrangement. Um, and so obviously what we started realizing was is that not a lot of people are going to play that way. Why would they? The octave violin's is a kind of a creature there. Daryl really made what it is. Yet again, one of his big donations. The way the chop thing is all him. Everybody doing this chop came from Daryl. I mean, Richard Green, of course, he came up with the original, but for me, that's where he came up with that, and then playing the way he plays we used to call low violin. I mean, he back then we would be hanging out in his back room in his house, and we would take. I remember we were trying to build a violin case together. That was a disaster, but we would take cello strings, chop them up, and super glue them to the tailpiece to make the strings because there were no strings. You had to make them yourself, and
Yeah.
it was really and you would not. I'm sure it was destructive. I'm pretty sure, but so like that, he's the one who really made that instrument what it is. So you're not going to get a string quartet made nowadays. There are a lot of players who play it. Like Tomastic makes strings for the baritone violin, and it's very available. You just take a violin and put strings from Tomastic that are not. About this, but so because string quartets are two violins, viola, and cello, if you want to actually have people play the chart as an arrangement to offer to people, there had to be a version for a traditional string quartet instrumentation, and so that's there, and that's why it's this. When we do these arrangements and you're presenting them to classically trained musicians, it's hard to make the transition to make it come alive, and sometimes it just can't. It gets stuck, right? Because it's so much about the way you phrase, and improvising is one of those things where it not only is your language base away from reading music, you're developing a way to talk, but that's a kind of like you can see the line in your hands. So that's me seeing the line, seeing my fingers play, right? And in that process of developing that over years, I also have a way of phrasing that a classical player has to. It's going to be very hard for a classical player to get the phrasing and not develop an improvising language. Like they two go together. Like it's very hard to swing and not improvise. Like it's going to get stuck. And so
Totally.
what happens? It won't come off because it's stuck on a stylistic misunderstanding that takes a lot of like you're doing, CT. You're taking it on, Jasmine. You're studying, so that's what's gonna be like. You're hanging with Daryl, and that'll help you really get to the heart of how to make it work, as opposed to classical players playing a jazz chart, right? Which is this, it gets kind of caught in a an awkwardness sometimes,
No, what
and
you,
yet,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, what you just said is so. I think that's so important that you can't separate language from
Yeah,
the inflections or the groove. Every
yeah,
time I'm asking Daryl, like, can we just work on one thing at a time? I know my groove is horrible, but can we just talk about language
yeah.
first? And he's like, but he always talks, and I realize that groove is part of the language. Anyway,
It's so true, and and that brings up another thing about Daryl. Another thing I give him credit for. He's been such a great teacher. He's like has so many students. He's through his artist works thing and through his working at Berklee College of Music. And even before, he's always all as long as I've known him, he's always been attracted to sharing. That's kind of how I'm part of it. He just welcomed me in his world. So when I was like like in this is 1977 or something, and that's why I'm just very grateful for his what he's done. I mean, like,
well, he
and
spoke so highly of you too. I'm so like too bad we couldn't get you guys on the same Zoom.
yeah, I missed that. I would have loved to seen him. See, we say hi for me. I haven't talked to him in a long time.
I
So
will. I
he's
will.
in Nashville, I think, these days. Where I hear.
Yes.
So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
going back to okay, so going back to Tunisia,
yeah,
um,
yes,
the ending. I want to ask you about. I've heard you. I know that in the arrangement it ends with a soft note, right? That's just like.
yeah,
But you guys often end it with the bottom
yeah, yeah. Because you know why? See if you can guess why. Why we no longer do the soft thing.
why you what?
So in the performances, we don't do the soft thing in performances. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, yes,
Why we?
and I'm guessing why you don't do the soft thing.
Yeah.
Because you want the audience to clap more.
No, it's more like it's a good point. I look at. I always want the audience to clap more. I'm as ego driven as anybody. But what the reason is, could never play it because the audience would as soon as we went that in a live show, they just start clapping. And so you go, and that's like it's like stupid. Nobody even hears it. So after we just gave up playing the last note because it didn't fit in the context of a live performance that people would be clapping and not paying attention.
I mean, you have a perfect ending there with the loud, with.
Yeah, we didn't even think about when I did the arrangement. I didn't think, oh, this is going to be this crowd. I didn't think this way. The one thing I love about that period of my life is I didn't really know I was just innocent, just trying stuff. And then it's like a kid who does a somersault and then everybody's clapping and I got to repeat that. How did I do that? That kind of thing. How can I do that again to get that reaction? Because it was so innocent. It was just trying anything, like a laboratory. It was a real kind of a growing
I,
time.
yeah, I think is it true that the original Dizzy Gillespie recording it doesn't end in F major, right? It ends in D minor, right?
Yeah, I think it just.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I think it just like that. I think it just kind of fades. I can't remember, but I think you're right. It just ends on a D minor. It doesn't do a long a chord. So this is me. I can tell you one of the things I was going for in that arrangement was I wanted to bring in some of the way that classical music has a composed side, like so the intro starts off very mysterioso, like this is in 1987, like nobody's doing anything like it was so brand new. So I was like, can I have this kind of like Stravinsky kind of vibe going on, like and I was a composer, so you can hear me working with the motifs, like playing around, and
Yes, yes, yes.
and then exploding into the groove, and what it also showed me, and this is another thing that I think is really important for composers to understand, is how much, and especially with Turtle Island, how much the music is dependent on the musicians themselves owning the music as theirs. Not that they're playing so and so's music and they're there just to reflect so and so's brilliant composition. The reason it works is because the players find themselves in the music, and as a composer, the more you can get out of the idea that you have to do your whole big thing and give them something that they can, Jasmine can be Jasmine and be Jasmine playing, then the audience feels you being you, and they're much more responsive. So when Mark's all of a sudden go, I had no idea that was going to happen. I put the line out, and there he's doing that. It's like, I would say, do that again. See, that's why I'm a great composer. But it's because he's just playing the crap out of this thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and that's
yeah.
it's the players make it happen, and that's the great thing
Yeah.
about jazz. You know, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just gonna say, like you. I think you won a Grammy for this arrangement, right?
I got nominated. I
And,
didn't win,
yeah,
but I got
and
nominated.
okay, but you know, it's an amazing arrangement. But I was
Yeah.
thinking too that it's as much, maybe almost as much you guys as, I mean, you know, if
Oh,
the way
it's
you
totally
played
about
it.
the players. I mean, it's just about the players. Now, I get credit. I'll take my credit. I mean, it was. I came in with the right approach that allowed that to happen, right? You know, and so you know, but at the same time, you know, that's there's a mystique about composers, right? In Beethoven, you know, there's a kind of the genius composer writing his masterpiece, and then the string quartet that plays the master, and then it's true. I see that still to this day, and I'm part of that. But what I noticed playing with Terrence's group too, with these great jazz musicians, what makes it happen are the players finding their own selves in it, especially if you involve improvisation. Because now I'm not composing; the players are improvising their parts. You know, so how is that my composition? You know, but then again, Duke Ellington's a good example. Somebody who knew how to set up a band to sound like the Duke Ellington group, and so that's it's the ability to set it up to be what it is. It's like and it becomes more of a what's the word when you're allowing something? You're facilitation, facilitation composing, facilitating a way that the players can just really do something special. And if this chart's going to work for you guys, it'll be about you. It'll be about, you know, it not if, when it works for you. I should rephrase that. I mean, I can tell just talking, you're already on fire. You know, you're going to keep going down this road. So, and you guys are a great string quartet. I mean, like, you know,
Thank
I
you.
really I'm because I'll tell you, Jasmine. I mean, I always when back then I felt this was just going to change the world string quartets completely, and that did not happen. There are still I'm to see your enthusiasm and excitement. That's how I feel about it. And so it's like I thought this was just going to change the face of string quartets. Period. You know, but it didn't work out that way. But it did have its element of influence. That if you look in the world of string quartets, you can see how Turtle Island played its role in opening the idea of playing non-traditional
Oh my God! I mean, you.
non-classical
No,
music.
it was you guys. I mean, what are you talking about? It was all you guys.
Well, of course, I won't say that because you know I would I would be out of my. It's not for me to say, you know, but I still could see the effect it has had, and also the effect it continues to have. Because I'm not done. Daryl's not done. We're still you know he left Turtle Island, but he's still taking. We're still on the same path, right? So we're still carrying on this same journey in our own ways, and so and then the part of Daryl's doing and I'm doing is to bring the younger players to the fore so they can continue this story, such as yourself, and he teaches a lot. I don't teach so much as my life has been that I bring in new players come in with Turtle Island, and my job is to be part of their maturity. Like now, I'm not their teacher. I'm more their collaborator, opening the possibility for them to grow in the context of Turtle. Like I'm like an Art Blakey, or in the jazz world, Art Blakey would be the guy who's the older guy who has the framework that they can blossom in. There's a way of mentorship that's involved in that for me, and that's the way I've done my own small version of what Daryl's done in a large version with his teaching approach, and in his own, he does it in his group too. So, but I think this still is this way that classical and jazz continue to find a way to integrate and it's still striking to see. I mean, I was just at the Grammys and I heard Curtis Stewart play. You know who Curtis Stewart is? He's in a what's a string quartet called? Public Quartet, I think. Anyway, he got nominated for a Grammy for a solo violin record he made, and he played this version. I think it was a Stevie Wonder piece, and it was incredible to hear him play. This young player, playing like that in a way that I think Turtle Island had a way of was part of that story. So, you know, anyway, I should shut up. I'm talking so
No.
much. So
No, I'm absorbing,
yeah,
drinking it all in. Can you talk a little bit about the little prologue thing that Daryl plays at the beginning of Tunisia? And I noticed that there's a version with Ron Carter where he plays this huge, kind of drawn out, cadenza in the beginning. Is that?
that was just in the original we didn't do that. I think that was just something. Yeah, that's right. We used to do it where Daryl would play. I forgot all about that. So as we would play, we would just look for opportunities to keep exploring, changing it. And one of the things I love about Daryl is when he plays baritone violin, he's so good at creating this mumbling quality to it. Like it's very kind of like you're almost not even sure you're hearing notes. You're hearing like footsteps in the dirt, the kind of thing, and it's just so indistinct and grooving at the same time. It's brilliant, and I'll have to tell you, I remember. I mean, it just took Daryl like when his opening thing on the recording where he plays really fast on
Oh, that
the
solo break
cadenza.
on the
Yeah, I mean
recording.
that.
It's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
it's incredible. He just did that. It just happened. And, like that's what, that's what another thing. He can play it fast and in the pocket. And so that one, I remember a group called the Manhattan Transfer, of a vocal jazz group that was pretty famous back then. They heard that and they wanted us so we started playing with them as part of that. Some people will hear us and go, "Oh man," like they'll catch. Okay, I want to hook up on that, and so that was the baritone violin thing. So,
Can you?
Daryl, yeah,
Would you be willing to show us, give us a little demo? I see you have a fiddle behind you.
yeah. What would I demo?
Can you demo a little improv overnight in Tunisia?
Um,